Once again, I'm Brent Blackwelder. I'm President Emeritus of Friends of the Earth. I began work on environmental issues back at the first Earth Day, 1970. And I want to get to a key question of what do people do on elections, because my first experience, it was in September of 1970, going door to door for an upstart named Sarbanes in the city of Baltimore, all Democratic primary, and he was challenging the powerful chairman Fallon of the House Public Works Committee. This guy was going to pave the country over with cement, and no one gave Sarbanes a snowball's chance in hell, and yet he won by fewer than 2,000 votes. The League of Conservation, for whom I was going door to door, gave probably 40% of the money to Sarbanes, and he won against unbelievable obstacles. What a lesson in actually results, because he went on then to become a four-term senator. So you're going from practically a zero to someone who's with you consistently. What's happened, though, is that over the past 4 decades, the problem has gotten worse, because what's happened is that members are spending so much time raising money to be competitive in campaigns. And that was compounded by the Supreme Court decision with unlimited special interest spending. Now, what Senator Bryan from Nevada got a group of us together and said in 1990, he said, "You people don't get it, what's happening to us. I am not independently wealthy. I have to raise $10,000 a day or I will not be reelected. Yes, I've been your champion on auto fuel economy, but look, I'm spending all my time raising money. I don't have time to study legislation, and I can't be out in front as your champion because I can't cut off big sources of money to me. I may vote with you occasionally, but that's it. You got to get real. This is what's happened." It's gotten even worse this decade, and this last election, $4 billion. We have to penetrate that. And you remember what Congressman Larson said to you last night. Did the campuses turn out to vote? His information was college kids did not show up. They did not vote. And the key thing, I think, if you were looking at this single most multiple leverage activity, is to be able to marshal a great turnout and vote at every single level, whether it's your county commissioners or your city council, your state representatives, the governor's race, the federal races. Your congressman's up every single 2 years. Senators are up on a 6-year rotating basis. You are getting people in office that will make hundreds, thousands of decisions on the budget, the tax code, all these issues, and we cannot deal with a bunch of losers that we have in here, deniers. But look at how this Tea Party, which did not have that broad base, but it was overtly electoral. It was doing something that all of our issue groups, and I'm criticizing our own movement that I've been part of for over 40 years until I retired last fall, we tend to run away from elections. And I get these comments, "Oh, well, gee, I don't really like any of the candidates that are running." Well, look, if you're going to a horse race, you can earnestly desire, I want Secretariat. I want to bet on Secretariat, the Triple Crown winner. Well, look, I'm sorry, Secretariat is not a horse in this race. You can wish you had Man of War from the old days or other great winners. I'm sorry, they're not in this race. You've got to either get your own horse in there or pick the one that affords you the maximum opportunity, because whoever's in there is going to be making all these decisions. And I know, having been a lobbyist for those 40 years, and I tell you, it was so different in the 70s. You could grab and talk personally with, say, 30 senators in a day if you were really good. But now you're just against a swamp of money, and they're not interested in anything that's going to cut off. There's so many that, and you'll see some exceptions today in the panel that we have presenting, but just too many are not receptive. So if you're not mixing it up, the Tea Party was overt. They were just going to go right after the jugular vein. And the kinds of teams that Marshall was talking about getting going for lobbying, yes, you get the team going because they can lobby when it's not the election season, but they can think about running candidates and really get motivated. You've got the basis for doing the kinds of things that, for example, when I was working to stop some Army Corps of Engineers projects, we had some great allies because some of these barge canal projects, we said the railroads are harmed by them and rail labor certs. So I had a fellow with the Brotherhood of Locomotive Engineers staying at our house, and he was telling us how in Chicago they were so organized they could handle every block. They would make a visit to everybody. You had a block captain. They saw and talked to everybody on the issues that were of concern to them, and they made sure that they turned out and voted, as many of them as they could. We need, as a movement, to focus in on that kind of strength in terms of combating this unbelievable volume of money that's just buying the government and wiping out democracy. Now, there's hope because we can overcome these well-heeled influences, which were the coal and oil and energy industries. They've been running governments all over the world, but we can beat this. We can overcome the fact that 90% of the media is probably controlled by 6 corporations. We just need to take that into account, but mobilize in such a way that we can overturn it. Some of our big allies now are those who are interested in electoral reform, and they want a constitutional amendment to overturn the Supreme Court decision. A good mobilizing technique, if you got your town or whatever to pass resolutions. One person was talking to this morning from Great Barrington, Massachusetts. They're going to do that, case-by-case basis. Build it up and getting your city council, your commissioners, or someone in that local entity of government putting forward a resolution on we want price carbon, we want to get this done, or whatever. Then it keeps building up underneath the higher legislators, and you go all the way up to the Congress. But getting the mechanism going is, and you've got several models here you can talk. There are other models that you can hook into. And my pitch is that you can hop on to the great things like the sign-on with 1 million letters. Those are good because they're part of a larger effort, but there's no substitute for being part of mobilizing in your area where you can control more of what's happening. It's very hard to influence things at a distance, but you can really make the impact, and doing it in this kind of way, it's multiple leverage. If you think of issues, the whole energy climate is so multiple leverage because the solution solves problems for dealing with all sorts of grotesque pollution. And elections is even more multiple leverage because it's dealing with good governance across the board, whether you're interested in education, healthcare, the amount of defense and military expenditures, wars, as well as environment. So it cuts across. Getting good legislators in on one subject, chances are they are forward-thinking and concerned and dedicated and not subject to special interest pressure.